Hey guys, Fox here, and today we're talking about Darrius Shepherd, former receiver of the New Jersey Generals, heading to the Denver Broncos. He is pretty much heading there to replace Tim Patrick, if I'm not mistaken, as he sadly went down with injuries. So, without further ado, let's just go right into his actual stats. As for his stats, Darrius Shepherd was a very, very solid player. He ended up playing in just 8 games, but in those 8 games, he got 17th in total receiving yards at 323. And for those you don't know, that 300 to 400 range was really close, so if he had played 2 more games, he could have hit top 10. He ended up having 1 touchdown, and he did average 40 yards per game, which is pretty decent in that league. So, he was very solid. Now, as for him, the big thing is that he has played in the NFL before. He ended up playing a few games for the Green Bay Packers, where he ended up only getting a couple receptions. But in that sense, it's more or less the idea, if you know what I mean. The fact that he did play in those games a bit and get some experience is pretty much what is good for him. So, yeah. As for the Broncos' depth, however, the depth is where it's a bit different for him. You see, the Broncos have pretty much, the last couple of years, been investing heavily in receivers. Their starters are Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. And their backups are Kendall Hinton, Montreal Washington, and Tyree Cleveland. Then third string, Seth Williams, Travis Fulgham, and Caden Davis. Then fourth string, you have Jalen Virgil, Trey Quinn, and Darrius Shepherd. So, as for their fourth and third string, Jalen Virgil and third stringer Caden Davis are undrafted free agent rookies. Trey Quinn on their fourth string was a 7th round pick by Washington in 2018. He has started a few games, but when he did, he only got about 200 yards and 1 touchdown. He's not really that great. He just played those few games and he didn't make enough of an impact to show that he was an impact type player. Then Travis Fulgham, formerly of Detroit, 2019, 6th round pick. He played with Detroit, then Philly, then Denver last year. His best season was with Philly, where he actually did have a pretty solid season. In 8 games starting, 13 games played, he ended up having 539 yards. He's a very solid backup type receiver to have as the third option type guy. Kind of weird that Denver brought him in to not really do anything, but Seth Williams is a 6th round pick by Denver last year. He ended up starting 1 game. He had 34 yards on 1 reception. He's decent for that role, I guess. I mean, they probably think he's going to be better, but kind of weird to me, but yeah. As for their second stringers include their 5th round pick from this year in Montreal, Washington. And then their other ones are Kendall Hinton, who was the guy that had to play quarterback that 1 game last year. He ended up playing in 16 games. He had 175 total yards. He's alright to have as a backup type guy. Tyree Cleveland was a 7th round pick by Denver back in 2020. I'm kind of shocked he's that high in the depth chart, is the safest way to put it. As to their starters, this is where it pretty much shows that there's no real chance to see Shepherd as a starter. Courtland Sutton is a Pro Bowl receiver. He hasn't been in a few years, but he was in 2019. He's a very solid type of receiver. He can usually do a few different rushes every year to get a few yards. And even though he hasn't been able to match that 2019 season due to injuries in 2020 and then last year, he was solid. He had 776 yards, but who knows? Maybe with Russell Wilson throwing to him, he'll have some better stats. Jerry Jeudy was a 1st round pick, 15th overall in 2020. He also took a dive last year. Again, you could say injuries and the quarterback situation on that team. But overall, hopefully this year he could have his first 1,000-yard season. And then KJ Hamler, again, only was able to play a few games last year. Granted, his rookie year wasn't all that, but he was a 2nd round pick in that same 2020 draft. So for the Broncos, they're pretty much banking on one of those two, becoming bigger, and since they do have Russ. I think that Shepherd could become realistically a 3rd or 2nd stringer on this team, honestly, but we'll see. This has been Fox. If you enjoy this content, when my notifications I upload any videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, and as always, have a great night.